Minishoot Adventures is a twin-stick shooter bullet hell RPG or role-playing game that takes a lot of inspiration from the Legend of Zelda series. In this game you don't play as a person, you play as a cute little spaceship. This feels appropriate to the bullet hell gameplay. They could have made this game resemble RPGs in a more traditional way by making your character a person in the style of Enter the Gungeon, but I'm glad they didn't. Enter the Gungeon had this problem in that your character is not symmetrical. They are holding a gun with one hand, which is where the bullets come out of, and then the player must weave around the bullets in a way that feels somewhat misaligned. I don't know the exact parameters of the character's hitbox in Enter the Gungeon, but even if it is perfectly symmetrical and lines up with where the bullets come out, it still feels a bit wonky, at least initially until you're used to it. A ship is much easier to visually understand how its shooting and movement align to aim at enemies and dodge their bullets. The animations don't need to snap to different orientations to make the 360-degree aiming make sense, because the ship can just spin in place. The image of the spinning ship communicates its information in a simpler and more elegant way. In Minishoot Adventures, you unlock new abilities that allow you to access new areas of the map, and you acquire them in dungeons like in Zelda games. You can also upgrade your ship with something like experience points, which are collected by defeating enemies or smashing crystals. You can choose what to do with them to increase damage, range, etc. These RPG elements contradict the difficulty and rewards typical to these types of video games, namely shoot-'em-ups or shmups. But I think the game still works despite this contradiction, which is the most impressive thing about Minishoot Adventures. Before explaining why, I'll say a few things about shmups in general. Shmups are games in which you shoot and dodge things. Some scroll automatically, either vertically or horizontally, and then there are games like Minishoot Adventures where an additional stick is added which controls the direction of the bullets you fire. In these, you have to control two directions at once independently: the direction your ship will move in and the direction of the bullets. This allows you to strafe or retreat, all while keeping a consistent stream of bullets shooting at the enemy. We call these twin-stick shooters because they are controlled with two sticks. The term bullet hell describes a genre of shmups often associated with Japanese developers like Cave or Touhou Project, in which the bullets become so numerous that they seem to fill up the screen, making these beautiful patterns that need to be carefully navigated. There's a great deal of depth and strategy to these games. They can be extremely challenging to get through without running out of lives, not to mention their often complex scoring systems. Because the moment-to-moment gameplay is so dense with critical decisions, you're usually a few pixels away from death. I've seen multiple people describe shmups as the crack cocaine of video games. One person who said it was the Electric Underground on YouTube. In the description I'll link a video where he talks about these concepts in more detail. These games have a lot of replay value in the same way a favourite album from a musical artist has replay value. Players familiar with shmups have a different type of relationship with these games than to other games like modern RPGs, for example, which are usually only played through once. You don't play through a shmup, rather you play it, you'll do a run and you'll have your own goals in relation to the game. You might try for a 1cc, 1 credit clear, beating the game without continuing, or a 2-all, clearing all stages twice in a row, or chase a new high score. These goals become personal milestones, each run an opportunity to test your skills and push your limits. Anyway, this is all to say that Minishoot Adventures traded all this in the moment it decided to also be an RPG. But that's okay because we already have DoDonPachi and many other great shmups. It's okay for this game to be doing something different. Minishoot Adventures RPG elements function as a gateway drug to give you a smooth transition into bullet hell. My playthrough was on normal difficulty, and because I have some experience with the genre, it often felt too easy. But the gameplay loop of upgrading my ship and the nature of the adventure still made it very enjoyable in the same way any Zelda game is. And the combat is extremely engaging compared to something like Link to the Past. No disrespect to Link to the Past, which is my favourite Zelda game. Minishoot Adventures gets difficult enough by the end that the upgrades alone won't be enough to push you through. You'll still have to get better at the game and learn the basic principles of the genre. So I think the RPG elements might work well as a way to get people to stick around long enough to keep playing so that they acquire a taste and learn to appreciate, or at least be more open to, the concept of a bullet hell. The game will have introduced them to the necessary visual vocabulary they'll need for something like DoDonPachi. And I know that's a vertical scroller, not a twin-stick shooter, but I think it still translates. For example, I was playing DoDonPachi Resurrection with my 8-year-old son, and it didn't really hold his attention for very long. I think this is not for a lack of potentially interesting things happening on the screen, but rather there were too many things. There's so much visual stimulation to interpret that it can be hard to see past the crazy blobs of wild colours and explosions. In contrast, when I gave him Minishoot Adventures to play, he was immediately engaged and played all the way through the first dungeon. It's like the ship upgrades are symbolic of the invisible upgrades happening inside you, which is you simply getting better at the game. These RPG elements protect you from yourself until you're ready to see what you truly are and accept it, that you actually suck at these games. But it's also okay to suck at them, and somehow the challenge is what makes them so valuable. And Souls-like games have certainly proven that the mainstream is capable of stomaching high levels of difficulty in gaming, especially when the challenge is presented to the player in an RPG context, like for example in Elden Ring. But animation-based combat with stamina gauges isn't the only way to perform the action in an action RPG. This is really obvious, but apparently not thought of or capitalized on enough because Minishoot Adventures feels like a breath of fresh air.